Hello, readers! Hello, readers! It's me, Valerie Monroe, and my wonderful friend, Bookwormy. It's kind of a gray, gloomy, drizzly day outside, but we've turned the lamp on in our special reading writing room, and it feels kind of sunny in here, don't you think? Oh, yeah, just like being on the beach in the Bahamas. Well, I don't know if I would go that far, but it is sunny, and we're really glad you're here to read with us. Oh, yes, we are. Let's go to the book. We've been reading down the Swale. We hope you like it so far. I hope they do. And we are up to chapter 11. Now, if you were with us yesterday for the episode right before chapter 11, which was at the end of chapter 10, Brogdon had just gotten home. I'm laughing a little bit because my cat Poe is here today. You might see his tail over there. He's a little crazy, so he might, I don't know, jump around or something. We'll see what happens. Right now, things look okay, but you never know. So as I was saying, Brogdon had just gotten home to his aunts. And if you remember, he was just about to introduce John to his aunts, and he looked over and John had just disappeared. But I bet his aunts are glad to see him because he's been missing for quite some time. So here we go, on to the next chapter. With each passing day, Brogdon's adventure faded a little bit more and seemed to grow more distant, sort of like when you've taken a vacation and it starts to fade in your mind. Upon his return, the morning torches had promptly been extinguished, and a celebration held. Aunt Gladys brought out a jug of her best honeysuckle juice, which was only for very special occasions, and quickly whipped up a cherry-covered pine cone pie. You know what a pine cone is, right? I happen to have one right here. I don't know how I thought of a pine cone pie. I just thought it might be something they would enjoy. I do know how I thought of the honeysuckle juice. When I was growing up, and I lived in a town called Richfield Park, we had a honeysuckle bush in our yard, and we used to bite the ends off the honeysuckle flowers, and they were very sweet. Okay, enough reminiscing. On with the story. Aunt Hazel delivered a most eloquent speech in which she thanked all of the neighborhood creatures who'd taken part in the search. And of course, Brogdon's good friend John, who had played a pivotal role in bringing their boy back to them. All of the creatures were eager to meet John, but Brogdon explained that he had already set off on his long journey back to his home on Sunset Island. The chipmunks, deer, raccoons, squirrels, butterflies, and a few gnomes gathered around while Brogdon told the story of his journey. Seeing as the tale was going to last long into the night, Aunt Hazel bribed a few dozen fireflies with a jar of freshly collected nectar. And they agreed to stick around, twinkling on and off throughout the evening. It was altogether very festive. There goes Poe. Brogdon began with his attempt to rescue the gnome, and he asked had anyone heard of his fate, but apparently he was still missing, and his tumble down the swale. He told them all about his friends, Fred and Nancy, of his night in Almost Home, and all about Ollie. I know the family. So many kids, remarked a raccoon. He continued with how he'd taken a ride in a boat. Oh, how wonderful, exclaimed Aunt Hazel, and how he had nearly drowned. Foolish house dwellers, scoffed Aunt Gladys. Imagine them calling Brogdon a monster. He told them about his flight in the heron's beak and how he was deposited onto Sunset Island. One of the deer shyly asked what an island was, and Brogdon had to take at least 5 minutes explaining. Think of how you would explain what an island is to someone who'd never seen it. What would you say? He described Elaine's scrumptious chili and the sour cream and French toast and John's kayak and the Jeep. He apologized to his aunts for losing his shoes and then displayed his new moccasins, which everyone oohed and awed over. Keeping his word, he left out absolutely everything about Maggie. Do you remember he promised John he wouldn't say anything about Maggie? He talked and talked until only Aunt Hazel and Aunt Gladys and the nocturnal animals were still awake. Time to get Brogden safe and sound into his own bed, Aunt Gladys announced when Brogden had finally finished. He fell asleep at once, glad to be home. In the days that followed, life quickly settled back into its usual rhythm. There were chores to be done, of course, and like always, Brogden was warned not to go near the swale. As if I'd ever want to go through that again, he thought. But he found that while he was sweeping out the hut with Aunt Gladys or helping Aunt Hazel gather stalks of white coral bells for a table centerpiece, his mind drifted away. In comparison to when he was away, his life back at home seemed dreadfully dull. Several times a day, he'd stop what he was doing to wonder what John and Elaine and Maggie were doing on Sunset Island. His aunts noticed the change in him as he became more distracted and daydreamy. Brogden misses his new friends, Aunt Hazel remarked one afternoon when they spied him walking near the rock wall. He was watching the leaves float by in the swale. He's bored with us old ladies. Oh, stuff and nonsense, sister, Aunt Gladys snorted. He always loved being here with us before. It's that blasted Swale. I always knew nothing good would have come of it. I'll tell you what he needs. He needs to keep busy. And we've got plenty to do around here, that's for sure. But he's seen more of the world now, Aunt Hazel said softly. Maybe tomorrow I'll take him on a short trip to Wishing Meadow. That's sure to cheer him up. Oh, after chores, of course, Aunt Gladys reminded her. Of course, Gladys, sighed Aunt Hazel. Doesn't that sound like a wonderful place to go to? Wishing Meadow? Grab something up here. I might need to show you. Going to Wishing Meadow, a beautiful expanse of dandelions as far as the eye could see, was a treat usually reserved for his birthday. On previous trips, Brogden always wished that his parents would return. But this time, before he blew those silvery seeds into the wind, he closed his eyes and made different wishes. He made a wish for Maggie, that she would stay safe from hunters. He wished that he could visit John and Elaine again and spend time with them and hear how the Wizard of Oz turned out. He wished that he could make his aunts understand that although he was grateful to be home, in his heart he longed to be two places at once. He wished for things they would never understand, like the thrill of hanging from a heron's beak and the magic of fish jumping in the moonlight. And although Aunt Gladys would never allow it, he wished for more adventures too. He walked through Wishing Meadow, from one dandelion to another, closing his eyes and puffing out one wish after another. By the time he was finished wishing, he was out of breath and covered in feathery seeds. They clung to his clothes and stuck in his hair. And what I was reaching for before is this little jar. I'm going to put it really close. It has a dandelion seed on it, and it's a wish in a jar. I don't know where I got it. I think someone made this, and I thought it was so beautiful. Can you see it? If you want, you can make a wish right now. Okay, let's go on. When Aunt Hazel saw him, she burst into laughter. Well, if your wishes don't come true, you can't say you didn't try, she chuckled. Brogden felt bad. It wasn't that he didn't love his aunts, his home, and everything else that was familiar. He just couldn't help thinking back to Maggie and her glistening scales. When he thought of her, he would reach for the scale hanging from the silver chain and rub it between his thumb and forefinger, as if that somehow brought him closer to her. His aunts were curious about the scale, but Brogden said it was just something sparkly he'd found on the ground. See that? He hasn't even told his aunts. And then one day, about a month after he'd returned home, something very unexpected happened. That's where we'll stop for today. We will see what the unexpected thing that's happened I can't wait to find out. Can you tell me? No, you know what? We're just going to have to wait until the next time we read together. Oh, listen, it won't be that long. We hope you guys come back and read with us next week. Yes, please come back because we'll be waiting right here for you. That's right. Bookwormy and I will be waiting for you. And do some of your own reading this weekend. Maybe go out and look for some dandelions. Make a wish. I don't know if they'd be ready to wish on yet. I think they're still pretty yellow. But you have a great weekend. Keep on reading, and we'll see you next time. See you next time.